Good evening. How's everybody doing? Great to be learning with you on a Tuesday, Yom Shlishi. Let's light up the darkness. Okay, give me 1 second. Who's in the house on a Tuesday? Yehud in South Carolina, Paul in the Great Northwest, Bill in Missouri, Melissa in Great Neck, Sharon in New Jersey, Bella in Florida, John in Maine, Guy in Ohio, Joe in the Inland Empire, Nancy in North Carolina, Gail in Kansas City, Belle in Texas, Lucy in Minnesota, and Chaim in Florida, Ella in Southern California, Spencer in Connecticut, James in Indianapolis, Alan in New York City, Renee in Indiana. Welcome, everybody. Our daf today is page 73 here in Tractate Sanhedrin, the 24th volume of the Talmud. Beginning right at the top of the page with Mishna number 9 here in chapter 8. Mishnah number 9 in chapter 8. And we're close to the end of the chapter. We won't quite get there tonight, but with God's help, we will get there tomorrow. Okay, and so this whole chapter has been about people who are subject to a death penalty or are liable to be killed even without a court-imposed execution because they have forfeit their life because of the criminal transgression that they're involved in. Yesterday, we talked about the burglar who breaks into your house, knowing that you will probably try to kill him when he comes in. So he comes with the intent to kill you. If he comes anyway, knowing you might kill him, it means he's ready to kill you, and that's why it's permitted to kill him when he breaks into your house. Unless, as we saw yesterday, the sun shines on him. And what the sages meant derived from that is the idea that it's unless it is as clear to you as the sun is shining that he does not pose a mortal danger, then it would be permitted to kill him. Otherwise not. And the example given was if a father breaks into his son's house, it's pretty obvious that the father's not going to kill the son. There could be exceptional circumstances, a terrible, abusive, violent father, etc. But generally, a father wouldn't kill his son. So if a father, breaks into his son's house, the son not permitted to kill him as a burglar. Meaning all other cases, the burglar has forfeit his life unless there's special circumstances. Okay, now we're going to talk more, and we mentioned in passing yesterday the rodef, or the roidef, the pursuer. So one who is coming to kill you, right? You can see he's coming to kill you. He's got a weapon in his hand and he's coming to kill you. So in that situation, you are permitted, in fact, it's even obligated, to rise up and kill him first because you should save your own life. It's also going to be permitted to kill a pursuer who is pursuing someone else. You can see that this guy wants to murder that guy. It's obvious that it's a case of murder. So you can kill the pursuer in order to save the pursuee. That's the general concept. Let's get into the details. Mishnah number 9. And these are the ones who are saved from transgressing, even at the cost of their lives. Which is to say, these people may be killed so that they do not perform that transgression. Who are they? One who pursues another to kill him. Or this is a man who pursues another male to sodomize him, meaning rape, or pursues a betrothed young woman to rape her. But with regard to one who pursues an animal to sodomize it, or one who seeks to desecrate Shabbos, or one who is going to engage in idol worship, they are not saved at the cost of their lives. Rather, they are forewarned not to transgress. And if they proceed to transgress after having been forewarned, they are brought to trial. And if they are found guilty, they are executed. But you can't step in and extrajudicially kill them. Why? Because you're not saving someone else from being victimized by this potential killer or rapist. Now let's get into the Gemara. The sages taught in a baraisa. From where is it derived that with regard to one who pursues another in order to kill him, the pursued party may be saved at the cost of the pursuer's life? The verse states, "You shall not stand idly by beside the blood of your brother." Here translated as beside the blood of another. Sometimes the blood of your fellow, re'echa. But we have the line in our movie, "You shall not stand idly by beside the blood of your brother." Rather, you must save him from death. So the Gemara asks, but does this verse really come to teach us this? This verse is required for that which is taught in a baraisa. From where is it derived that one who sees another drowning in a river, or being dragged away by a wild animal, or being attacked by bandits, is obligated to save him? The Torah states, "You shall not stand idly by beside the blood of your brother." So the Gemara answers, yes, it is indeed so that this verse relates to the obligation to save one whose life is in danger. Now that's very interesting, right? Under, let's say, American law, if you see someone drowning in a lake and you could save him, but you don't, are you penalized? Are you liable? You might be morally reprehensible, but you have no liability under the law. You're not obligated to commit the positive action of saving that person. Under Torah law, you are obligated. In fact, you're not only obligated to save his life, you're obligated to save his life even if it means hiring people to do it, spending your own money to save this stranger's life, as we shall see. So if you shall not stand idly beside the blood of your brother, let's say the translation here in the Quran, you shall not stand idly by beside the blood of another person. So you have to save him. You're obligated to save him. Let's say from being swept away in a river. Are we going to learn out from that you are also obligated to kill his pursuer? Are you permitted to kill his pursuer? We've already learned that. But is this same verse in the Torah which says you're obligated to save him from being killed by some kind of natural circumstance where you can save him? But if saving him requires killing another person, the pursuer, are you obligated to kill? Are you permitted to kill? Which is it? And can we really learn out all these different ideas from the same verse? So yes, it is indeed so that this verse relates to the obligation to save one whose life is in danger. Okay, in danger. But to the extent that you have to kill his pursuer? So the Gemara asks again, but from where do we derive that one might be saved at the cost of the pursuer's life? Now this one may be saved at the cost of the pursuer's life. So this seems to say it is permitted to kill a pursuer. Doesn't sound like you're obligated to step in and kill a pursuer. Not everybody, can do that. It's not in the makeup of every person to do that. Okay, but it is permitted. So are we going to learn out that it's permitted to kill a pursuer from the same law which teaches you're obligated to save one, for example, who's drowning? The Gemara asks, from where do we derive that one may be saved at the cost of the pursuer's life? That you are permitted to kill the pursuer? And the Gemara answers, it is derived by means of a kal v'chomer inference from the law governing a betrothed young woman who was assaulted by a rapist. Kal v'chomer, if in this stringent case we do such and such, then certainly in the more lenient case. So how does it work? The Gemara answers, it is derived by means of a kal v'chomer inference from the law governing a betrothed young woman who was assaulted by a rapist, which is specified in the Torah. So if in the case of a betrothed young woman, which means she has the legal status of being married, but she's still a virgin because she's still living in her father's house, whom the rapist comes only to degrade, i.e. the result of the rape will be that her status is lowered because she will no longer be a virgin. So the Torah said that she may be saved even at the cost of the rapist's life. Well then, in the case of one who pursues another person to kill him, all the more so should one say that he may be saved even at the cost of the pursuer's life, right? If you're allowed to kill the rapist, who would rape this young woman and turn her, from a betrothed young virgin into a betrothed young non-virgin, and to save her from that fate, you can kill the rapist. Well, then all the more so, you can kill the would-be murderer, right, who's going to turn a living person into a dead person. That's the kal v'chomer inference. So now the Gemara asks, wait a minute. Yeah, so the Gemara asks, but does the court administer punishment based on a kal v'chomer inference, right? Kal v'chomer inferences, okay, that you can or can't do something on Shabbos, that you can or can't eat something, that you can or can't get into a contract. But are we going to use a kal v'chomer inference to create a liability to execution? Really? Don't we need something more tangible and specific in the Torah than this kind of inference? Does the court administer punishment based on a kal v'chomer inference? And the Gemara answers, a sage of the school of Rebbe taught, this law, is also derived from an analogy based on a juxtaposition, meaning a stronger kind of principle stated in the Torah than just the kal v'chomer inference. How so? With regard to the rape of a betrothed young woman, it is written, Deuteronomy 22:26, but you shall do nothing to the young woman, the rape victim. The young woman has committed no sin worthy of death. For, as when a man rises against his neighbor and slays him, so too with this matter. Meaning she was a victim. But why would the verse mention murder in this context? She's not a victim of murder, she's a victim of rape. What do we learn here from a murderer? Now, the mention of murder came in order to teach a law about the betrothed young woman, and it turns out that, in addition, it derives a law from that case. So the Torah juxtaposes the case of a murderer to the case of this betrothed young woman who is raped to indicate that, just as in the case of a betrothed young woman, one may save her at the cost of the rapist's life. You can kill the rapist. So too, in the case of a murderer, one may save the potential victim at the cost of the murderer's life, which is where we started this. How do we know that you can kill a pursuer who intends to murder someone? We said, well, we learn it out from the law of the betrothed young woman. Turns out that those two laws, the law of the murder and the law of the rapist, are juxtaposed so that we can learn that just as you can save the woman from rape by killing the rapist, you can save the one who would be murdered by killing the murderer. Okay, so the Gemara asks, and with regard to the betrothed young woman herself, from where do we derive that she may be saved at the cost of the rapist's life? That the Torah doesn't actually say that. So the Gemara explains, as it was taught in the school of Rabbi Yishmael, the verse states, for he found her in the field, and the betrothed young woman cried out, and there was none to save her. Because when the Torah continues about that case, right, she wasn't saved from the rape. the guy raped her. So the Torah says she bears no guilt. She was a victim. And this one who raped her, when they catch him, he's actually going to owe money to her father because he lowered her status. She's now a rape victim. She's no longer a virgin. And, she can't be married as a virgin. And there's a financial cost for that, a financial damage that the rapist has to make good on that. He's also going to be obligated to marry her if she wants to marry the rapist. Hard to imagine, but he will be obligated. That he has no choice, and he can never divorce her all the days of his life. And it might not be possible to execute the rapist, even though that is a death penalty offense, because there weren't witnesses. Maybe there was one witness, but not two. Right. So, but if there was someone to save her, so this idea of saving her teaches us so that if there was someone to save her, so then he must do so by any means that can save her, even by killing the potential rapist. That's how we know that one is permitted to kill a rapist to prevent him from committing the rape. Even though rape doesn't take a life, it is permitted to kill the rapist to prevent him from raping. Now, concerning the matter itself, it is taught in a baraisa, from where is it derived that one who sees another drowning in a river or being dragged away by a wild animal or being attacked by bandits is obligated to save him? Now, you're not obligated if you're going to risk your own life in doing it, right? Because one life is not worth more than another. But if you can save this person from drowning or being murdered by bandits, etc., without endangering your own life, you're not just permitted to do that, you're obligated to do that. And how do we know? The verse states, you shall not stand idly by the blood of another. So the Gemara asks about this derivation. But is this really derived from here? It is derived from here, a different verse. As it is taught, the Torah teaches that one must return lost property to its rightful owner. If you find lost property, you have an obligation to return it. But from where is it derived that one must help his neighbor who may suffer the loss of his body or his health? Right? You have to return the lost property, right? Somebody loses his wallet, you have to return the wallet. How much more if he's in danger of losing his life and you have the power to return his life to him, as it were, save him. It must be that much more, right? The verse states, and you shall restore it. Vehashevato, right? You shall return it. You shall restore this lost object to him. Lo means him. Lo with a vav is him. Lo with an aleph is no. Okay, so return it to him. Which can also be read as you shall restore him to him, i.e. saving his body. Consequently, there should be no need for the additional verse, you shall not stand idly by the blood of another, to teach us that you are obligated to save a life when you can. So the Gemara answers, if this law were derived only from there, I would say that this matter applies only to saving the person in danger by himself, i.e., that he himself must come to his neighbor's rescue if he can, as is the law with regard to returning a lost object. But to trouble himself and hire workers for this purpose, one might say that he is not obligated, just as he is not obligated to hire workers to recover another person's lost item. If you can pick up a lost item and return it to your neighbor, you do it. You're obligated. But you're not obligated to hire workers to return somebody else's lost object. You are obligated, if the only way to save someone's life is to hire workers to do that, you're obligated to hire them. Therefore, the verse, do not stand idly by the blood of another, teaches us that he must even hire workers, and he transgresses a prohibition if he does not do so. The sages taught yet another baraisa on the topic of a pursuer. One who pursues another to kill him, or pursues a male to sodomize him, or pursues a betrothed young woman to rape her, or pursues a woman who is forbidden to him by a prohibition, the violation of which renders him liable to receive a court-imposed death penalty, like one who is pursuing a woman to commit adultery with her, a married woman, so he's trying to rape a married woman, or any woman. It's interesting that they split these categories because the fact is, if a man wants to rape a woman, no matter who she is, it's permitted to kill him. or pursues a woman who is forbidden to him by a prohibition, the violation of which renders him liable to receive charis, all these people are to be saved at the cost of the life of the transgressor. But with regard to a widow who is being pursued by a high priest, or a divorcee, or a woman who has performed chalitza who is being pursued by an ordinary priest, they are not saved at the cost of the rapist's life, because these unions are subject only to a mere prohibition. So did I speak wrongly? It's not any woman that is that somebody might rape, that you're allowed to kill him rather than let her be raped. The law, that according to what we just read, maybe not. But where the law ends up, I'll just mention, this is according to Shulchan Aruch, if someone is pursuing a betrothed young woman or some other woman with the intention of raping her, and intercourse with her is forbidden to him, so that's any woman who's not his wife, or if he is pursuing a man in order to sodomize him, he is saved from transgressing. He is saved from transgressing even at the cost of his life, meaning it's permitted to kill the pursuer, right? The would-be rapist. And it's true, you're saving him from committing the rape. He's better off dead than having committed rape. But really, you're saving the pursuee from getting raped, right? So it's permitted for any woman. Except, I guess, if a husband is pursuing his wife to rape her, which, it'd be difficult to discern that from a distance. Okay, where are we? Furthermore, if a sin had already been committed with the betrothed young woman, then she is not saved at the cost of the rapist's life. In other words, you can save a woman from being raped by killing the would-be rapist. But if he has already committed the rape, then you cannot kill him, right? That would be an extrajudicial execution. That would be a lynching. You can't do that, right? So you can save her before she's raped. Once she's raped, you can, I guess, tear her away from him, but the rape already happened. You can't kill him anymore. I guess if he's in the midst of it, that's the question. He already started raping her. So in a sense, she is raped, right? She has been raped, but you want to save her from, continuing to be raped, right? In the middle of the act. Can you still kill him? That's unclear. You can definitely kill the guy who's trying to rape this woman before he starts raping her. Once he starts, can you still kill him? Not clear. Let's keep reading. If a sin has already been committed with the betrothed young woman, she is not saved at the cost of the rapist's life. In addition, if there is one to save her, i.e., if there is another way to save the betrothed young woman that does not involve killing the rapist, she is not saved at the cost of his life. If you could stop the rape without killing him, then you can't kill him. Rabbi Yehuda says, also, if the betrothed young woman says to those who come to rescue her, let him be, meaning let the rapist be, she is saying this so that he should not kill her. And therefore, the rapist is not killed. Now, what does that mean? She's saying, don't kill him, because she's afraid that he will kill her, that the rapist will kill her. But because she said don't kill him, according to Rabbi Yehuda, now you no longer kill the rapist. We don't hold by Rabbi Yehuda. We hold that if she says don't kill him, she's only saying that because she's afraid. And you are still permitted to kill the rapist before he rapes her. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters derived? The Gemara answers, the verse states, but you shall do nothing to the young woman, a Nara. The young woman has committed no sin worthy of death, right? This is the Torah speaking about this woman who was raped. Now, and she's a young betrothed woman, right? She's betrothed, but she's still a virgin living in her father's house. The word is read as young woman, Nara. But in the Torah, it is actually written as Nar, which means young man. Right? Now, there are words, as we've seen a bunch of times in the Torah, that they're written one way, and we have a tradition going all the way back to Mount Sinai that when they're read aloud, they're read a different way. There are just certain words like that. So the question is why? Why is it written one way and pronounced a different way? Must be to teach us something. So in this case, the law, the betrothed young woman who is raped, it's written nar, a young man who is raped, but it's not. It's talking about a young woman, and we pronounce it nara. So the question is, why did the Torah write it that way? Did it omit a letter? Like, it wasn't a mistake. There are no mistakes in the Torah. So why is it written as if it's a man, but it's pronounced as a woman, and we understand that the law is teaching about a woman? But then why is it written as if it's about a man? The word is read as a young woman, nara, but it is written as a young man, nar. Nar, as it is written, this alludes to sodomy. Nara, as it is read, this is the betrothed young woman. Sin, these are women who are forbidden to him by prohibition, the violation for which renders him liable to receive charis, right? Even if it was consensual, but he lies with his sister, we don't execute them for that, but the punishment is death at the hands of the heavenly court. Death, these are women who are forbidden to him by a prohibition, the violation of which renders him liable to receive a court-imposed death penalty, like adultery. Now the Gemara asks, why do I need all these different cases? Why does it not suffice to offer one example from which all the others can be derived? And the Gemara answers, these cases are all necessary. As had the merciful one written only nar, to teach the law with regard to sodomy, that you can save, a man from being sodomized by another man, non-consensually. So one might say that this victim alone is saved at the cost of his attacker's life, because it is not his way to engage in intercourse with a man. And so he would suffer excessive embarrassment and pain were he not saved. But a young woman whose natural way is to engage in intercourse with a man, one might say that her attacker may not be killed. Therefore, this verse comes to teach us that the attacker may be killed. And had the merciful one written only nara, to teach the law concerning a betrothed young woman, one might say that she alone is saved at the cost of her attacker's life, because he degrades her by taking her virginity, and she will be cheapened in the eyes of her betrothed. But a young man who is not similarly degraded, in that sense, one might say that his attacker may not be killed. Therefore, the verse comes to teach us that that the attacker could be killed. And had the merciful one wrote both of these, and now we're on page 73b, one might say that, okay, the young man and the young woman are alone saved at the cost of their respective attackers' lives, because for this one, it is not his natural way, and that one, the rapist degrades. But one who rapes one of the other women with whom relations are forbidden, whose natural way is to engage in intercourse with a man, and their degradation is not great in the sense that they're not virgins anymore because they're married, one might say that their attackers may not be killed. Therefore, the merciful one wrote sin to include this law, the other women with whom relations are forbidden, right? Meaning anyone who's not a man's wife. And had the merciful one wrote only sin, I would say that this applies even to women who are forbidden only by a mere prohibition, that they too are to be saved even at the cost of their attackers' lives. Therefore, the merciful one wrote death to teach us that this law applies only to transgressions that are punishable by the death penalty. And had the merciful one wrote only death, I would say that those women who are forbidden to him by a prohibition, the violation for which renders him liable to a court-imposed death penalty, are indeed saved even at the cost of their attackers' lives, as these are very serious sins, for which they are punished by the court. But those women who are forbidden to him by the type of prohibition, the violation of which renders him liable to receive charis, like incest, a punishment from God rather than an earthly court, are not to be saved at the cost of their attackers' lives. You might have thought that. Therefore, the merciful one wrote sin to teach that this law applies even to the prohibitions that are punishable by charis. So the Gemara challenges, but let the merciful one write only sin worthy of death, and it would no longer be necessary to specify nar or nara. And the Gemara explains, yes, this is indeed so. The words sin worthy of death suffice to include all those who are included in this law. But nar and nara are mentioned here not to include a case, but rather to exclude a case. Why were these words included? One serves to exclude someone who seeks to worship idols. If you see someone going to commit the death penalty sin of idolatry, if he was warned and witnessed, etc., and you see him going to do that, you might have thought that, well, you can kill him to prevent him from committing that sin. But you can't. That's not permitted. And the other term serves to exclude someone who seeks to sodomize an animal or desecrate Shabbos, teaching that these transgressors are not killed in order to prevent them from sinning. And this is why we're using that language of to save the transgressor from his transgression. But you're not permitted to save the transgressor from committing the transgression when it only hurts him, like idolatry, bestiality, or desecrating Shabbos. Now the Gemara asks, and according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, who says that an idol worshiper must indeed be saved from transgressing even at the cost of his life. Minority opinion. Why do I need the two terms nar and nara? So the Gemara answers, well, one still serves to exclude someone who seeks to sodomize an animal, and the other one serves to exclude someone who seeks to desecrate Shabbos. Now the Gemara explains why both are needed. It might enter your mind to say that the law with regard to one who desecrates Shabbos could be derived from the law with regard to one to idol worship by way of the verbal analogy between the word desecration mentioned in connection with Shabbos and the word desecration mentioned in connection with idol worship. Consequently, you might think that one who seeks to desecrate Shabbos must also be saved from transgressing even at the cost of his life, according to the view of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Therefore, a special derivation was necessary to teach that a potential Shabbos desecrator is not to be saved at the cost of his life. So the Gemara asks, and according to the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, who says that one who comes to desecrate Shabbos must be saved from transgressing, even at the cost of his life, because the law with regard to one who desecrates Shabbos can be derived from the law with regard to idol worship by way of the verbal analogy between the word desecration mentioned in connection with Shabbos and the word desecration mentioned in connection with idol worship. Then what is there to say? And the Gemara answers, well, one exclusion serves to exclude someone who seeks to sodomize an animal, and as for the other, since the merciful one wrote nar, he also wrote nara. That is to say, the form in which the word is written in this verse and the form in which it is read do not teach two different laws if we're following the views of Rabbi Shimon and his son, which we don't follow. Moving on. The Baraisa cited previously, right? So the law is we don't kill somebody who's on his way to desecrate Shabbos or to commit idol worship or to commit bestiality. Their sin will lie on their head and God will sort it out later. We don't kill such a person. We only kill one who's on his way to rape or murder another person. Now the Baraisa cited previously teaches Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with the rabbis and says also, if the betrothed young woman says to those who come to rescue her, let the rapist be, she is saying this so that he should not kill her, and therefore the rapist is not killed, right? Because maybe by her saying this, now the rapist won't kill her, so therefore her life is not in danger, and we shouldn't kill him. Yeah, but it wasn't because her life was in danger that we are permitted to kill the rapist. It's because he wants to rape her. That's not murder, that's rape. So this is why but this is Rabbi Yehuda's view. Now Rava says, so he should not, so therefore the rapist is not killed according to Rabbi Yehuda. Now the Gemara asks, well, what exactly is it that Rabbi Yehuda and the majority disagree about? So Rava says they disagree about a case where the young woman is particular about the degradation that she is to suffer as a result of the rape. Like she knows that she's going to be rendered a non-virgin, and she cares about that, but nevertheless, she allows him to rape her so that he should not kill her. The rabbis maintain that the Torah is particular about her degradation, which is why the rapist may be killed. And she too is particular about her degradation. And Rabbi Yehuda maintains that the merciful one says that a rapist must be killed because his victim is prepared to sacrifice her life rather than yield to rape. That's why, right, you can kill the rapist, because she might fight for her life. I mean, she might fight off the rapist and fight so hard that he ends up killing her. That's why really it is that her life is in danger, and that's why you're permitted to kill the rapist, is according to Rabbi Yehuda. But if she says, just let him rape me, because, so that he won't kill me, so then her death is off the table, and that's why you can't kill him. That's the minority view of Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Papa said to Abaye, if the reason that the rapist may be killed is that he degrades the woman, as claimed by the majority, a high priest also degrades a widow when he engages in intercourse with her. This is consensual intercourse, as he makes her a halala, meaning a woman who is disqualified from marrying any priest. Why then is she not saved even at the cost of her attacker's life? And Abaye said to Rav Papa, for a great level of degradation involving charis and potentially a child that is a mamzer, like a rape or adultery, the merciful one is particular. But for a small level of degradation, as in the case of a halala, the merciful one is not particular. Okay, she can't marry a priest. Very few people are priests. She can marry everyone else. The fact that she slept with the high priest, it's not that degrading to her. She's still permitted to marry any other Jew who's not a priest. The Baraisa taught that the word sin is referring to women who are forbidden to a man by a prohibition, the violation of which renders him liable to receive charis, death at the hands of the heavenly court. From here it is derived that a man who attempts to rape a woman who is forbidden to him under penalty of charis may be killed. So the Gemara raises a contradiction between this and what is taught in a Mishnah, Tractate Kesuvos 29a. These are the cases of young women for whom there is a fine paid to their fathers by one who rapes them. And the list includes one who engages in intercourse with his sister. One who engages in intercourse with his sister is punished with charis. And accordingly, a woman being raped by her brother may be saved even at the cost of her brother's life. Whenever one is liable to be killed at the hands of people, even if the transgressor is not killed, the transgressor is exempt from paying any fine or payment because the monetary payment is the lesser penalty, right? And when two penalties apply at the same time, that he could be killed for his crime or that he'll have to pay a fine for his crime, okay, so then, killing applies and the fine does not apply, as we learned yesterday. Therefore, since one attempting to rape his sister may be killed, he should be exempt from the fine ordinarily imposed upon a rapist. Even if he's not killed, the fact that he could be killed when he's attempting to rape his sister means that he's exempt from paying a fine for that rape. So why does the fine exist? So the sages stated in this solution before Rav Chisda. From the time of the initial stage of intercourse, when he has already degraded her, as she is considered to have engaged in intercourse from that time, like when he first inserts himself into her, now she's already not a virgin, right? A rape has been committed, even though he hasn't completed the act, so to speak. From that time, he is already exempt from being killed. As it was taught in a Baraisa that once the sin has been committed and the woman has been raped, the rapist may no longer be killed. But he does not become obligated to pay any money until the conclusion of the act of intercourse, when the signs of her virginity are completely taken away. Since the two types of liability are not incurred simultaneously, there is no exemption from paying the fine. Indeed, he's liable for rape and for the fine that he owes to her father. If she's still a young woman, I guess, and to her later. Rav Chisda said to those sages, this works out well according to the one who says that the definition of the initial stage of intercourse is a kiss. This is a euphemism for external contact of the sexual organs, as it is inevitable that there will be some slight penetration. But according to the one who said that the definition of the initial stage of intercourse is the insertion of the corona, right? The head of the penis has to be all the way inside before we say that the initial stage of intercourse has happened. Well, then what is there to say? This stage takes away the woman's virginity. From the time of the initial stage of intercourse, she is no longer a virgin, and he becomes liable to pay the fine at the very moment that he may be killed in order to save him from his transgression. So why does the fine still apply? Since he's liable to be executed or liable to be killed to save her, why does the fine still apply? So rather, Rav Chisda says the Mishnah should be understood as referring to a case where the brother first engaged in intercourse with his sister in an atypical manner, right? From meaning anal intercourse. With this intercourse, he degraded her, but she is still considered a virgin. So afterward, he again engaged in intercourse with her in a typical manner. Only at that point did he become liable to pay the fine paid by one who engaged in intercourse with a virgin and took away her virginity. But he could then not be killed as she had already been degraded. So there is no exemption from the fine. You could have killed him, right, to prevent him from, raping his sister in the atypical manner. But once that was already done, you can't kill him anymore. And he incurs the fine, seemingly at the same time. So why is he liable to the fine? Rava says, the Mishnah is referring to a case where the sister allows her brother to rape her and asks that he not be harmed so that he should not kill her. She's afraid for her life, but figures if she lets him rape her, she won't be killed. Sadly, that's not so atypical in the world of evil predators, right? I mean, like the woman submits not because she wants to be raped, but because she wants to survive the ordeal. And it is taught in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says that in such a case, she is not to be saved at the cost of her brother's life. Page 74a at the top, Rav Papa says, the ruling of the Mishnah, which lists his sister among those for whom he must pay a fine, is stated with regard to a young woman who is seduced. And in the case of seduction, all agree that the woman is not saved at the cost of the seducer's life, as the intercourse was consensual. Abaye says, the ruling of the Mishnah is stated with regard to a young woman who was raped in a case where one was able to save her by injuring the pursuer in one of his limbs, so that it was not necessary to kill him in order to achieve her rescue. And it is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul, not the majority opinion. As it is taught in a Baraisa, Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul says, if a pursuer was pursuing another to kill him, and one was able to save the pursued party without killing the pursuer, but instead by injuring him in one of his limbs, but he did not save him in this manner, and rather chose to kill him, he is executed on his account as a murderer. In other words, if you could save the pursuee with non-lethal force against the pursuer, but instead you chose to kill the pursuer, then you, the would-be savior, the savior, now become liable for murder. Very tough, very tough. Now that's going to be a very difficult case to prove, that you knew that and this is why it's not a majority opinion, that you knew that you could save the one, to get away. In other words, like if you could, if it would have been enough to just bump this guy and he trips, and then the one who's running away could, get in a car and get away, and you would have saved his life, without killing this guy, well, then that's what you should have done and not kill this guy. Not take the law into your own hands, so to speak. But they would have to prove that you knew that was, that it was possible to do that, and that the action that you took, which ended up killing the pursuer, was a choice you made to commit murder rather than simply save the life of the one getting away. Lots of gray area there. At any rate, even if it's proven that you knew that you could save the life of the pursuee by using non-lethal force against the pursuer, and you chose to use lethal force, then the law is you would be technically liable for murder, but a court would not impose the death penalty on you. That's the law. Now the Gemara explains, what is the reason of Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul? Now the general minority opinion. We also learned this, that in terms of the pursuee, right? We learned this, remember, in the story from the book of Samuel, or was it Book of Kings, I think. Book of Kings is when the story came back. But it was the idea of Yoav and Avner, right? And that the one who was, running for his life should have used non-lethal force to kill the one who was trying to kill him, because he was an expert marksman and he could have done that. And so Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul said, yeah, well then, if he could have used non-lethal force and he didn't, then he's liable for committing murder. But the majority said, what are you talking about? Under those circumstances, how could he be so sure that, he could shoot an arrow into a non-lethal area, and then he makes a mistake and shoots into the lethal area and you're going to hold him liable when he was trying to just, save his own life? No, the majority overruled Yonasan ben Shaul. And it seems that it's the same argument when a third party is saving the pursuee from the pursuer. What is the reason of Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul? As it is written, quote, if men strive and strike a woman with a child, if men strive, so two men are fighting, and in the course of their fight, accidentally, right, a woman, one of the men strikes a pregnant woman, presumably the wife of one of these two guys who is fighting, so that her fruit departs. Meaning, right, they're fighting with each other, and in the course of the fight, one of these guys hits this woman and she miscarries. And yet no further harm ensues. She miscarries, but otherwise she's okay. So then this man shall be punished according to the demands that the woman's husband makes on him, and he shall pay it as the judges determine. Right? He's going to have a financial liability to make good because that woman miscarried. And concerning this, Rabbi Elazar says, the verse is speaking of striving to kill, where each man was trying to kill the other. These two men who were fighting, it wasn't just a fist fight. They were trying to kill each other. Each one was trying to kill the other. Unclear, which is the attacker and which is self-defense. At this point, either one of them could have walked away. They're both fighting to the death. So both are, pursuers of each other. And in the course of that, so in other words, from the point of view of this woman who miscarries, there's a man who's trying to kill another man, and he makes some kind of a mistake and ends up harming her, and she miscarries. So the proof is that it is written. The proof is that it is written, but if any harm ensues, then you shall give life for life. Right? The continuation of this part of this verse in the Torah, Exodus 21:22, about two men are trying to kill each other. One of them, hits this woman and she miscarries, and he's going to be financially liable. And then the next verse is the very famous line, but if any harm ensues, then you shall give life for life. And if there was no intention to kill, why should he be executed? And even so, the merciful one states, and yet no further harm ensues. He shall be punished, teaching that he must pay the monetary value of the fetus to the woman's husband. So apropos this, so in other words, now the analysis continues. So granted, if you say that in a case where one is able to save the pursued party by injuring the pursuer in one of his limbs, non-lethal force, he may not save the pursued party at the cost of the pursuer's life. And if he killed the pursuer rather than injure him, he is liable to receive the death penalty. That is how you find the possibility that the one who ultimately struck the woman would be punished. This would be in a case where it was possible to save the man under attack, i.e. one of the men who were fighting, by injuring the other man who ultimately struck the woman. The one who ultimately struck the woman, it would have been possible, to stop that harm from coming about by, striking this man in one of his limbs rather than killing him. And that's why ultimately there's going to be a fine to pay, right? The financial damages to the woman who miscarried. So in this case, the one who ultimately struck the woman was not subject to being killed, because under this analysis, we're saying that it would have been possible to stop the fight and stop the accidental miscarriage, accidental striking the woman, which led to a miscarriage. It would have been possible to stop that with non-lethal force. Therefore, he is subject to pay a fine. But if you say that even if one is able to save the pursued party by injuring the pursuer in one of his limbs, non-lethal force, yet he can also save him at the cost of the pursuer's life, it's possible to stop him that way with non-lethal force, but you chose instead to kill him, and that's permitted. If so, how can you find the possibility that the one who ultimately struck the woman would be punished with a fine? Because as we've seen, if you're liable to be executed or to be killed as a pursuer, for the same action, since you were risking your life, putting yourself in a situation where you're liable to be executed, or killed as a pursuer, then you're exempt from paying financial damages. So if it is totally okay to kill him, there shouldn't be a fine. He should be exempt from financial damages. When he was going to strike the other man, he was at risk of being killed, as anybody could have killed him at that time. And the law is that anyone who commits an act warranting death exempts himself from any monetary obligation ensuing from that act. So the Gemara tries to refute this reasoning. Well, perhaps it is different here because his two liabilities are not on account of the same person, right? It's permitted to kill him because he's trying to kill this other man. He's going to owe damages to the woman that he accidentally struck and she miscarried in the course of him trying to kill that man. So, his liabilities are, he's trying to kill this man. He owes money to her, right? His liability, is subject to being killed for trying to kill someone is vis-a-vis that man. His liability for financial damages is vis-a-vis that woman. Separate people. Why not impose both routes of legal options? He's liable to be killed and he owes financial damages because they're different people. But the Gemara rejects this distinction. No, there is no difference. As Rava says, if a pursuer was pursuing another to kill him, and during the course of the chase, the pursuer broke vessels belonging either to the person being pursued or to anyone else, he is exempt from paying for the broken vessels because it's permitted to kill him. Since it's permitted to kill him, the financial damage penalty doesn't apply. If it wouldn't be permitted to kill him, then the financial damage penalty would apply. What is the reason for this? The reason is that he is liable to be killed. Since everyone is entitled to kill him in order to save the victim's life, the one who commits an act rendering himself liable to be killed is exempt from any monetary obligation arising from that act, even if the payment were to be made to a person not connected to the act for which he is liable to be killed, right? Because if death penalty or the fact that, an onlooker could kill you to save someone else applies, then financial damages do not apply because of the general rule that where both a strict penalty and a more lenient penalty apply at the same time, only the strict penalty is applied. Even if he's not ultimately killed, the fact that he could have been killed is enough to exempt him from the financial damages. If those two liabilities arise at the same moment. If they arise at different times, then he could be liable to be killed and be liable to pay damages. Rava continues. And if the pursued party broke vessels while fleeing from the pursuer, if those vessels belong to the pursued party is exempt. But if they belong to anyone else, he is liable to pay for them, right? If you are in danger of your life, so let's say, for example, you see a car, speeding at you, and it's, it could kill you if it crashes into you, and you swerve off to the side, and, you swerve into someone's house and cause $100,000 of damage to the house, you have to pay that damage because this guy, the guy who owns the house had nothing to do with any of this, right? He suffered a damage, $100,000 worth of damage. He's not, somebody has to make that good. You have to make that good. Why? Because you'd rather be alive and pay that guy for the damage you caused to his house, right? But you saved your life at the expense of this guy's house. You owe him. You're not allowed to say, well, I was saving my life. Yeah, you were saving your life. You were permitted to harm that guy's house, but you have to pay for it. He is liable to pay for them. And the Gemara explains, if the vessels belong to the pursuer, right? If the house belonged to that guy who's driving at you to kill you, and you drove into his house and harmed it, then you don't owe anything because you're saving yourself at the expense of the property of the guy who's trying to kill you. And the reason for this is that so that the pursuer's property should not be more precious to the pursuer than his own body. Were the one being pursued to cause the pursuer bodily harm, he would be exempt. You could certainly kill somebody who's trying to kill you. All the more so when the pursued one breaks the property of the pursuer. And if the vessels belong to anyone else, he is liable, as he saved himself at the expense of another person's property. And that other person should not have to suffer a loss on his account. Rava continues, but if one pursuer was pursuing another pursuer in order to save him, i.e., if he was trying to save the person being pursued by killing the pursuer, and while doing so, he broke vessels belonging either to the pursuer or the one being pursued, or to anyone else, he is exempt from paying for them. I see, Reuven running after Shimon to murder him. I want to save Shimon. So I'm going to run after Reuven, and kill him, or at least, knock him off the chase in order to save Shimon's life. In so doing, I break property. I break property that belongs to Levi. Do I have to reimburse Levi? Now you might say Shimon should reimburse Levi, but he didn't do anything to Levi's property. I did. Am I going to have to make it good to Levi's property? No. Why? He's exempt from paying for the property of another that was broken in the course of trying to save a pursuee from a pursuer. The third party who steps in and saves a pursuee from a pursuer. And the Gemara comments, this is not by strict law. As if one saves himself at the expense of another, he is liable to pay for the damage. Certainly one who saves another at the expense of a third party should bear similar liability. But why do we make him exempt? This is an ordinance instituted by the sages. This is because if you do not say that he is exempt, it will be found that no person will save another from a pursuer, as everyone will be afraid of becoming liable to pay for damage caused in the course of saving the pursued party. Right? So it's by rabbinic decree that if I break Levi's property in order to save Shimon from being murdered by Reuven, I don't have to pay Levi for the property. Levi had an unfortunate circumstance. I saved Shimon's life. I'm not going to have to pay Levi for the property that I broke in order to pay Shimon's life. If Shimon is a mensch, he will pay for that property because his life was saved, but I'm certainly not obligated. I would be obligated simply because, generally speaking, if I break Levi's property, no matter what the reason, I owe Levi for the property that I broke. But since I broke it in order to save Shimon's life, I don't have to pay Levi. That's by rabbinic decree. I'm almost done. Questions or comments, please get them in now. The Mishna number 9 here that we've been discussing. 9, right? Yeah. The Mishnah teaches, but with regard to one who pursues an animal to sodomize it, or one who seeks to desecrate Shabbos, or one... Sorry, I'm going to be ready with the questions. But with regard to one... All right, let's start again. The Mishnah teaches, but with regard to one who pursues an animal to sodomize it, or one who seeks to desecrate Shabbos, or one who is going to engage in idol worship, they are not saved at the cost of their lives, right? We don't kill them in order to prevent them from committing that sin. And it is taught in a Baraisa that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, one who seeks to worship idols may be saved from transgressing at the cost of his life. Minority opinion. This is derived through a Kal V'chomer inference, if to avoid the degradation of an ordinary person, such as in the case of a rapist who degrades his victim by turning her into a non-virgin, so he can be saved even at the cost of his life, he can be saved, right? Saved from the transgression. In other words, we're saving her from being raped. All the more so, is it not clear that one may kill the transgressor to avoid the degrading of the honor of God through the worship of idols? If this guy's going to go, a Jew who's going to go commit idolatry, this is going to degrade God, as it were, and therefore for the sake of God's honor, we can kill this guy who's going off to commit idolatry. That's Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai's argument. The Gemara asks, but does the court administer punishment based on a kal v'chomer inference? And the Gemara answers, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai maintains that the court does administer punishment based on a kal v'chomer inference. It is taught in a baraisa. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, says, one who seeks to desecrate Shabbos may be saved from transgressing even at the cost of his life. And the Gemara explains that Rabbi Elazar holds in accordance with the opinion of his father, Rabbi Shimon, who says the court administers punishment based on a kal v'chomer inference, and the law with regard to one who desecrates Shabbos is derived from the law with regard to idol worship by way of the verbal analogy between the word desecration mentioned in the context of Shabbos and the word desecration mentioned in the context of idol worship, as we said before earlier today. But those are minority views, and we don't follow them, and you are not permitted to kill someone to prevent him from committing idolatry or desecrating Shabbos or committing bestiality. And that concludes what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to take some questions. Tomorrow, fascinating daf. It'll be a key daf, I am pretty sure. But that's where we're going to talk about, someone holds a gun to your head and says, commit the following crime. Are you permitted to commit that crime in order to save your own life? Depends on the crime. Hint. And there are some crimes that you are not permitted to commit, even if it's at the expense of your own life. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Okay. So Sharon says, isn't reyecha neighbor or fellow, as in ve'ahavta l'reyecha kamocha, right? Love your neighbor as yourself, or love your fellow as yourself. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes we say brother, not like, like the word for brother, like your, physical brother, parents that you have, you share parents. But your holy brother, right? Like your brother in the community, and that's how I was loosely translating. But you're absolutely right. Neighbor or fellow would be much better standard translation of reyecha. Bill, it is an obligation to spend money to hire workers to save the life of another. If it is an obligation to spend money to hire workers to save the life of another, do we then derive from this that we are obligated to risk property in general? Or is this narrowly that we are only required to spend money to save a life? I am assuming the former. So you're saying, am I obligated, for example, to save this guy from drowning, to put my car right up against the edge of this swamp? Maybe I'm going to and stand on the car and throw him a rope, but it's very possible that I'm going to lose my car in the process. Am I obligated, and let's say I'm not a rich person, and losing a car for me is a huge deal. I haven't even paid off the car. I'm going to have to pay off this car for years, and now I'm not going to have the car. Do I have to risk my car in order to save this guy's life? I don't know. It's a great question. Certainly, if we're obligated to hire workers to save someone's life, so you do have financial obligations to save a life if you can. But how far does that go? If it's going to render you a pauper to save that guy's life, do you have to go that far? I don't know. Because we have seen elsewhere, right, that rendering someone a pauper is like killing him. And so you don't have to sacrifice your life to save somebody else's life. So unclear. I'm not sure what the answer to that is. Great question. Renee, can the rapist flee to a city of refuge? I was just watching House of David and was confused because Saul's son, the defiler, was sent to him. I thought it was just for wrongful death, but we're speaking about rape as though it's a category of killing. Head scratch. 100% Renee, that was a head scratch moment because they got it wrong. We were watching that show too. Generally, fantastic show. Really good writing, really good acting, really good dramatization of David's, rise from obscurity as a shepherd and a kind of ignored son, questionable relationship with his father and his mother, to become the sweet singer of Israel, the military hero of Israel, the champion of Israel, and finally the king of Israel. Amazing show, highly recommended. But they take liberties with the Bible. They take liberties with secondary characters, and they say so at the beginning of each episode, that for the sake of storytelling, they're taking liberties. And this was one. Absolutely not, right? The only person who can flee to the city of refuge is the manslaughterer, right? Somebody who commits a negligent homicide because he's subject to be killed by the Goel Hadam, the redeemer of blood, the closest relative, who has this right to kill him because his relative was killed, right? It's only in the context of manslaughter that the city of refuge applies. This idea that one who committed rape, or I guess in the show seduction, maybe that was the gray area, and that's how he defiled her and refused to marry her, and then they invoked the law of the city of refuge. That was not right. They didn't take our class. They don't know, or they don't care what the law, according to our sages, is regarding the city of refuge, what the law in the Torah is concerning the city of refuge. Chaim, last question. Would the obligation to save a life include being obligated to donate a kidney? Is donation even allowed? What about donating blood versus organ, as blood doesn't compromise a complete body? Whew. These are strong, important questions. Definitely beyond the scope of today's class. Organ donation is complicated. It is complicated. There's definitely no obligation to donate a kidney. You're not obligated to donate a kidney. Because even though medicine has come a long way, any surgery that you undertake, you're risking your life when you go through it. You had 2 kidneys, now you have 1. God forbid something happens to the remaining kidney. You're not obligated to donate a kidney. You're certainly permitted to donate a kidney. And lots of religious people, Orthodox Jews, have donated organs, living donation. Post-death donation is more complicated. I can't go into it now. Donating blood, obviously permitted. Is one obligated to donate blood in order to save a life? I'm not sure. I'm not a rabbi. I haven't studied this. I haven't looked it up. It's probably looked up pretty easily. My guess? Yeah, I think. If you're donated to give money, you're obligated to donate money to save a life. But are you obligated to donate blood? I'm just not sure. My guess is yes, but I'm not sure. That's what I've got for us today. And with God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow for a key daf, page 74, here in Tractate Sanhedrin. God willing, we'll be there tomorrow together. All the best.